Apple earnings proved an apple a day keeps the recession away. I'm joined now by the #1 analyst on Apple. He put a buy on the company back in January when shares were at just $80. Of course, they closed yesterday at almost $190. He's Brian Marshall, and his new target for Apple is $210. And Brian, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
And we are we're certainly very close to your price target. Did anything yesterday that you heard from Apple in the report and also in the conference call change your mind about where you want to put the price target?
Most definitely. In fact, there were stellar results. I actually raised my price target this morning at $235, up from $210. So we stepped that up this morning. The results were fantastic across the board. Recall, I was street high. My revenue estimate was about $500 million higher than the street consensus. They actually blew my number out of the water by about $150 million. So just stellar results across the board. I think the company actually solidified their position, in my view, as the best technology on the planet today.
But even before these results, a lot of people were saying, well, all this great news about Apple, it's already baked into the stock price. The fact that you raised your target means that you don't think so.
That's right. In fact, my numbers were high on the street for calendar year 2010 pro forma earnings. I was at $10.50. This morning, I raised those by 12%. I went to $11.75. So I think the important point to make here is that while Apple has done phenomenally well over the past couple of years, their market share of the handset space as well as the global PC space is still well less than 5%. So in my view, I think the best growth for the company could actually be ahead of them. So I don't think there isn't any reason why they can't double their share in those respective spaces within the next 5 years.
Right, but Brian, I guess some might argue, though, the last 10 years, or last 2 years has been relatively easy for Apple in the sense that they haven't gotten a whole lot of competition. But going forward, they're moving into these new spaces. They're going to be competing or continuing to compete with Microsoft. But then they've got Google nipping at their heels. They've got Dell, Verizon, and all the different areas that they now want to challenge or gain the market share that you just talked about.
Sure. I think if you look at what happened in the handset space, for example, so the iPhone didn't exist 2.5 years ago. RIM's been doing BlackBerries for over 10 years. So if we look at the success that Apple's had in that space relative to RIM over the past couple quarters, I mean, they're almost on the same level playing field in terms of units per quarter. So I think Apple has done a fantastic job of identifying key secular growth markets, creating a very unique product, not only from a hardware and a software perspective, but also an ecosystem. So, you have the App Store, the iTunes Store, and so you create all that together for a fulfilling, enjoyable user experience. And I think that's really the key to Apple's business model success. And I think they're going to continue that going forward relative to the competition.
And that means that even with that competition, they can continue to keep prices higher at a premium to other products or other competitors?
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, Apple's ASP for the iPhone was north of $600 for the quarter. I think their gross margins, by my calculations, were about 61.5%. That's basically double its nearest competitor, RIM, whose product hardware margins on the BlackBerries are in the 30s. And so I think Apple is, head and shoulders above the competition in that regard.
Okay, Brian, good to talk with you. Thanks so much. Brian Marshall talking about Apple and raising its price target after those numbers.